Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on politicians, past and present, making the case for a united Canada. But first, finding a way forward.
It's time for a divorce. As I told the Prime Minister, it's more like couples counseling. Let's get together at a table, let's identify the issues that are problematic, and let's work them out.
The Premier on navigating the issue of separation while expressing heightened confidence that once a few more MOU details can be worked out, the Alberta and federal governments will soon land on a document paving the way to a new West Coast pipeline. Big question, will the MLA for Calgary Shaw still be in government when that happens? And Rebecca Schultz joins us now. Ms. Schultz, good to see you. Welcome back.
Great to see you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. When your resignation from Cabinet was announced at the end of last year, the indication was you would stay on as an MLA until May. With a sessional calendar showing this will be the last week of the current sitting, safe to say you're just a couple days away from departing politics?
That's true. That's true. It's been such an honor to serve as the MLA of Calgary Shaw and ministers in a number of portfolios across government. It's always mixed. I'm so proud of the work that our government and our Premier is doing right now, so that makes it always tough to step away. But I've been in politics, I think, for 16 years now. So first as a staffer, then working in government, and then as an elected official. So there always comes a time to move on.
Well, now in signaling your departure, you posted to social media that timing is everything in life and in politics. So what makes now the time to go?
I think it was just reflecting on the amazing work that we've been able to do as a United Conservative team over the last 7 years. Like I said, it's been the true honor of a lifetime to serve the people of Calgary Shaw. And it's such a rare opportunity to be in elected office where you are entrusted with people's hopes and fears and aspirations for the future. And you get to take all of that feedback and those amazing ideas and then work to make Alberta a better place and leave things better than you found them. And so for me, after 7 years in elected office, but 16 in politics and government overall, it was time. But I will, of course, continue to support our amazing United Conservative team, and I'm grateful for our Premier and all of the work that she is doing on behalf of Albertans right now.
We teed up the conversation on the MOU, and in the early days of those discussions, you were still Environment Minister, looking to Ottawa for progress. Disappointed to be leaving before maybe a deal is locked down? Not in a position to see this through? Or maybe you can let us in on something. Maybe there is something before you're finished.
I think that's a key piece, right? In politics, there's never a perfect timing. And so for me, those two things weren't related. It was an honor of a lifetime to also work to defend Alberta against the federal government's overreach that we saw over the last 10 years, and to push for essentially the federal government to respect the Constitution and provincial jurisdiction when it comes to energy development, and really work to defend against some radical ideological policies that were coming out of the federal government and impacting Albertans' way of life and our overall Alberta and Canadian economy. That's some of the most amazing work that I was able to do. It was an honor to do that work on behalf of Albertans.
The Alberta-Ottawa relationship appears a lot more productive at the moment. So in reflecting back on your time as Environment Minister, how would you describe dynamics with one Stephen Guilbeault as your federal counterpart?
It was a really interesting point in time. I think I have many stories about Minister Guilbeault's approach to policy, but when I think back, what I sum it up as is, if you could imagine how productive we could be as a country if we did not have to spend all of that time, I would say, at the political level, but also within the department level, both provincially and federally, all of the industry time and effort that went into modeling, working through why all of these federal policies were so damaging to our economy, and then trying to work for fixes or repeals in many cases. I think of the work that our Premier has done in building alliances across the country, which we have seen other premiers step on. and support Alberta on many of these fronts. Obviously, she was very successful in having the net zero electricity grid regulations taken off the table, as well as the oil and gas emissions cap. But of course, that work isn't done. I'm very grateful for the work that our Premier has done to push for our major industries, as of course that is hugely important for the Alberta economy.
I have to ask, but how do you feel about leaving at a time when forces are building towards a possible referendum on separation?
You know, I think Albertans have a significant amount of frustration. I spoke on a panel in Ottawa about this last week. This frustration isn't new. We saw it under the first Prime Minister Trudeau. And then when we had Prime Minister Stephen Harper, a pro-economy, pro-growth leader, respecting provincial jurisdiction and the Constitution, we didn't hear those same concerns. I think we also we're fortunate to have a Prime Minister from Western Canada who understood what Western Canadians were looking for in those early years. But then after these 10 years of frustrating, devastating economic policies coming out of Ottawa. And again, largely economic, but we've seen it in everything from childcare to healthcare to pharmacare as well. Albertans' frustrations are real. I think the work that the Premier has done to give Albertans hope that there is a better way. I think we heard that from Prime Minister Carney in the last election when he ran, and he said, we're going to become an economic and energy superpower. National unity is very important. I think what Albertans are looking for, though, is some action to back up those words. And we haven't seen that just yet. So I'm glad that the Premier is optimistic. Like I said, I'm very glad that she is the one working to defend and lead Alberta right now.
How concerned are you about the electors list data breach? Even reports that the group at the center of that controversy is refusing to cooperate with Elections Alberta investigators.
You know, I think Albertans are concerned about that, and we've been very clear. We expect the Elections Alberta office to do their work. They're an independent office. We want to see that investigation as well as the RCMP election move forward. I think that that's the most important thing. Of course, those groups are independent from government, and we have said we will be looking forward to see what they bring forward so that we can get to the bottom of what happened there.
Now, in running for party leadership, you pitched the element of there needing to be a shift in tone. We spoke about this 4 years ago. What did that whole experience open your eyes to where party unity is concerned?
You know, I would say that was such a great experience. I don't regret it for a second. It was amazing to travel across Alberta and hear the perspectives of people in every corner of our province and really listen to what their main concerns were, some of their ideas for how we could do things differently and better. And after that leadership race, I would say probably the most amazing thing was how the Premier then stepped in and brought our team back together, including all of us who ran in that leadership race as contestants. And I think that's one of her, probably one of her strongest leadership skills is her ability to bring together our team and ensure that we are, in fact, a united Conservative team working together. She took ideas from other leadership candidates, and we heard many of the same things as we traveled the province. And, you know, I would say even when it came to the federal government, once again, she really stepped up to show leadership, to say, you know, there are frustrations here in Alberta. There are things, you know, we have demands like the 9 bad laws being repealed. She's been very clear in terms of what our province is looking for, then building that coalition across the country of premiers, finding agreement on areas where there is agreement, and then pushing for change. And so I think she did take a different approach, a different tone with the federal government. Again, we're all still waiting to see the federal government step up and deliver on what they ran on in the last election, but I'm glad that she's there holding them accountable.
All right, last quick question for you. All done with politics?
Yeah, you know, I always say you never say never, but after being in it for 16 years, it's just the right time to step away and potentially look at some different things. But like I said, it's been such an honor. I'm so grateful for the team that I've been able to work alongside, for the Premier and her leadership, the friends I've made along the way, and again, just having the faith of people in Calgary Shaw to be their voice here in the legislature has really been an amazing honor.
From politicians current and past speaking out against separation to the future of the Forever Canadian petition and Rebecca Schultz on her impending departure from government. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, Chris Spearman, former mayor of Lethbridge, and Graham Thompson is a longtime political columnist in the province. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the evolving conversation around separation.
There's a lot of Albertans, maybe 1 in 4, who are saying this is a chance to send Ottawa a message. We're ticked off. Maybe this is how we get leverage.
Former Premier Jason Kenney, though, urging the opposite at a sold-out event in Calgary Monday evening, making the case for Canadian unity, along with Calgary Confederation Liberal MP Corey Hogan. The event hosted by the nonprofit organization Build Canada. Chris, surprised to see a former Conservative Premier who fought a lot with the federal Liberals tag-teaming with a current Calgary Liberal MP on this issue of separation. What strikes you about the alignment?
Well, it is interesting to see a Liberal and a Conservative on the same page, presenting in public, but this is an issue which can unite certain people who are traditional Federalists and support Canada as a country. We'll see. The audience was apparently a sold-out audience last night. Are they people who are already committed, already decided, or are they people who are on the fence? But certainly very good to see Conservatives and Liberals speaking on behalf of Canada. I think that's a positive.
So, Graham, what's to be made of Jason Kenney's messaging that using the issue of separation as a means of leverage may not be such a good idea? How do you see that landing given the state of the independence dialogue?
Yeah, there's two things. One is that the independence movement, the separatists, tend to deal with emotion. And you can argue with them on facts, you know, that the economy and what Alberta's doing within Canada historically, but it's emotion, this idea that Alberta is always aggrieved no matter what happens in Ottawa. So the problem is if you're trying to argue logic to a person who's dealing with emotion, it's very hard to get through to that person. But it's also, I find, a bit ironic as well that Jason Kenney is not a complete saint here. He was the one that began recruiting what he later called the lunatics into his party, UCP, and then they, in a sense, took over the party. So don't forget, he was one always fighting with Ottawa, and he helped generate that emotional response and the antagonism towards Ottawa. And I would argue this has led to what we're seeing now. And he is, I would say, at least partially responsible for this. And now he's sort of, I guess, playing catch up to try and derail the separatist cause that he actually, in a sense, maybe inadvertently, started to light the fuse.
All right, next up, the opposition is accusing the Smith government of avoiding a vote by MLAs on the Forever Canadian petition.
She knows that it is her future leadership that's at risk. She knows that her party is now beholden to these separatists. So it is not surprising to me that the Premier can't do what Albertans are asking to do.
I'll just let the independent committee do the assessment and then make a report to us about what they think the path forward should be. A government committee met Monday to further discuss the future of the Forever Canadian petition that asks, do you agree Alberta should remain in Canada? Wording the Premier says is unclear and requires the committee to determine next steps. The group could recommend government, table policy, or hold a referendum. It adjourned Monday before making any decisions. Graham, during this Monday meeting, NDP MLA Raki Pancholi, who we saw in the clip there, tried to force the question to a vote in the legislature. A push cut short by the meeting's end. Is there still a chance, though, this could be dealt with sooner than later, especially if it is the Smith and Carney government cement a pipeline deal?
No, the government does not want this to go ahead. They've sidelined the Forever Canadian petition. And Thomas Lukaszuk was very clear. He wanted this petition to drive a vote in the legislature. And the government's taken that and delayed it, put it off to an all-party committee and saying, well, let the committee deal with it. But they used the majority on that to keep delaying things. This committee is not going to meet likely until the legislature sits again in the fall after we expect a petition, a separation petition. So this government has done all it can to, I would say, to derail this. Yet over 400,000 people signed it and verified by Elections Alberta, and this government's done all it can to sideline it while giving help to the people who want a petition on separation. So I would think this is not going to go ahead. This has been sidelined, and the government's done it, in my opinion, deliberately.
So, Chris, where does this languishing issue then leave all those Albertans who signed Thomas Lukaszyk's petition? Is this not a group that carries a degree of weight in how this whole separation debate plays out?
In my opinion, those people who signed the petition do carry a lot of weight, and I think they would be concerned. But this is basically a tactic, as Graham has said, to delay any decision on this, so the government doesn't offend people who are in their base and supporting them. So the more delay, the better. The government in no way wants to be confronted on having to do something on this issue.
All right, it's time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, Rebecca Schultz on leaving the provincial government. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back. We heard from Calgary Shaw MLA Rebecca Schultz off the top this evening, the former Smith government cabinet minister preparing to leave government and provincial politics. Chris, what strikes you about the timing of Rebecca Schultz's departure, and surprises that she might not be around for the landing of a pipeline deal with the feds?
Well, I think she'd made up her mind 6 months ago. It's pretty clear. That she was leaving. Why she's leaving is really the question in my mind, and what might be in the future for Rebecca Schultz. Is she moving on to something else? Will she be appointed to something by this government? So she seems very positive and very supportive of the Premier. Lots of compliments in her departing remarks. So we'll see what happens next. I'm not sure that she's motivated to stay for a pipeline deal. She seems pretty compelled to leave politics at this point.
Graham, what do you read into the rationale she gave for leaving at this juncture, and how does it play at a time when debate over separation continues to heighten?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think that Chris is right. Now, she made this decision months ago before everything else blew up. Including the price of oil, of course, and the separation petition. She said today, of course, she said when she's stepping down, it's time to look at other possibilities for my career, opportunities in my career. And today she said potentially look at other things. So she's been really vague as to why she is leaving. And Chris, does touch on an important point. Has she been promised something? I'm not saying that she has, but when someone like she's ambitious and she's smart, articulate, when someone leaves a senior position in government, you think they've got some other, the golden parachute, they've got a trampoline waiting for them. They will not, fall to the ground or something else waiting for them. So I think that is something. We'll see what she is actually going to do next. And don't forget, another issue, I was talking to some colleagues today at the press gallery about why she's leaving. And don't forget, she ran to be leader of the UCP to become premier in 2022. Because she lost, and she was very critical of Smith at the time, as many of them were in that leadership race. So you got to think: is she also looking at her growth in government is limited because Smith is going nowhere. The polls are showing she's doing very well. The NDP is not doing well. So you got to think: if she's ambitious, and she is very ambitious, is she leaving because she sees no more room to grow in government? And she was looking for bigger and better things in the potentially private sector.
Chris, what degree of impact do you see Rebecca Schultz having had as a cabinet minister? She held down a handful of portfolios, including environment, as well as municipal affairs. Oh, I think Chris is frozen. Graham, how about I toss that question to you? What kind of impact do you think she had?
Well, the thing is, it's interesting because very often in Alberta history, the most important minister next to the premier was Minister of Energy. And not finance, it was energy, but of course that's diminished. And she became a very important Minister of the Environment. In fact, it seemed a lot of things were put through her, even it seems some energy issues were put through her as Minister of the Environment. And I think that she's proven herself to be articulate. And the interesting thing is that she was Minister of the Environment as the government started pulling back on the environment, tripping up in growth in renewable energy, solar and wind. The government was moving backwards. And you had her as the foot soldier basically doing all of that. So you could say, well, hold on, that's not a great record. But she's been part of this machine, the UCP machine, to change the whole dynamics in the province more towards energy, even though she's Minister of the Environment. And also, it's important quickly to note that a recent poll out this week, Angus Reid, I believe, saying that most Canadians now look at the energy issue in terms of, as opposed to protecting the environment. That was a big issue like 7 years ago when they polled people. Now they're saying it's economic growth when it comes to energy. And Smith is the environment minister, so maybe that's playing into it as well. But she has been, to me, the right-hand person very often of the premier, as opposed to energy or even finance. So I think she's played a big role in this government. So if you like the government, then you think that she's done a great job. If you think this government's done a lot of wrong things, especially in the environment, then that's the person you could point the finger of blame. But to me, she's just following orders from the premier.
Chris, where the UCP is concerned, how much of a loss is it to see Rebecca Schultz go?
Difficult to say. She's very much a cheerleader for the premier. Can she be replaced by one of the other UCP MLAs? I think that's entirely conceivable. I'm not sure that she'll be remembered as somebody who made a huge difference, but certainly she was instrumental within the UCP government.
And, Graham, how quickly do you see the Smith government triggering the by-election for Calgary Shaw? Would there be any reason for waiting out the 6-month window?
Yeah, separation. Hello. You saw that debate in Calgary sold out. People in Alberta don't want to separate. And that's an issue that gets people talking because they understand what it is. Not some sort of policy issue. It's separation. And, of course, Rebecca Schultz, Calgary Shaw, they do not want a by-election anytime soon where the unofficial ballot box is going to be separation. The NDP would play that up big time. They want, I would say, to delay this until after the referendum question. So they got 6 months to actually call the election once the seat becomes vacant.
And real quick, Chris, what kind of race do you see building for Calgary Shaw in a by-election?
I think it'll all depend on who the candidates are. So I think both the NDP and the UCP will try to put forward the best possible candidate and make this a poster for the upcoming provincial election in the fall of 2027.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time. Have to leave it there. Great to see you both. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, here are a few responses to a recent story posted by CTV News, and it's about Alberta to take power over bike lanes. Brad says the party that demands the feds keep their nose out of provincial jurisdiction is putting its nose in municipal affairs. Jack Lucas, or Lucas Jack, writes, "You got to be kidding me. Come on, Edmonton and Calgary, speak up." But Too Tuned Out believes bikes belong on sidewalks. When they are on the road, they create more pollution by slowing down traffic. Get them off the street. 7 Acid doesn't seem to have a problem with the province getting involved, saying bike lanes are a waste of space. But according to Mitch, big cities need multiple alternatives to cars. Have your say. Email us anytime at comments@albertaprimetime.com. Coming up tomorrow, Federal Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu on support to help head off the impact of tariffs and how that could play on the pipeline front as a deal appears ever closer. That's on Wednesday. Until then, have a great evening, everyone, from all of us at Alberta Primetime. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time.